Okay, so are you following? Yeah. So this, what's happening here is, or let me ask first, who understands what's going on here? It's like the same thing, almost the same thing we just did a couple minutes ago. So who understands what's going on here? Or who doesn't understand? Please, let's be fast. I'm waiting. No, just write in the text box for now. Okay, so you don't understand. Okay, all right, Elijah, I see three people. All right, that's fine. So you understand that we are creating a print numbers function, right? And this print numbers function is supposed to print numbers from 1 to 50. So the idea behind this is print these numbers from 1 to 50. Then when you get to a number that is divisible by 3, instead of printing the number, print Fizzboss. Same, so what we are saying, instead of printing number, print Fizzboss. When you get to a number that is divisible by 5 to print Fizzboss. When you find the one that is divisible by only 3, print Fizz. Then when you find the one that is divisible by 5 alone, print boss, right? Then else continue printing the number till you get to 50, right? So let me, do you understand what I just said? Or I should still go ahead and take it line by line? Hello? Just text box, so that we can move fast. Do you understand what I just explained, or I should go at it again? Elijah, let's go on. All right, good. So yeah, so basically we are just having a for loop. This for loop is just initiating I as 0, and then we want to iterate through numbers from 1 to 50. And want to make sure that once it gets to 50, we stop iterating. So after displaying the first number, we want to increment by 1 and then display the next number. This if statement is saying if the number that we want to display is divisible by 3 and also divisible by 5, it should display Fizzboss. Else, if the number is divisible by only 3, it should display Fizz. If the number is divisible by only 5, it should display boss. And then else, every other number that is not divisible by these two numbers should display as the number. So, but I think it would be right for us to just call this and see what happens. Hello, are you guys with me? So yeah, so you see now, if you see what's happening here in the console, you will notice that for every number that this is 8, this is 9, right? 9 is Fizzboss. Okay, we are starting from 1, 1, 2, Fizz. Good. So 3 is divisible by only 3. 5 cannot divide 3, right? So that's Fizz for this 5. So when you get to numbers that are divisible by like this, like 15, 15 is divisible by 3 and also divisible by 5. This is printing Fizzboss. It goes on like that. It doesn't print the number except the number is not divisible by either 3 or 5. So I believe that's understood now. Hello. Yes, just post yes on my text box if you understand. Let's move on. We have one more before. All right. So for numbers, okay, Anthony, unmute quickly and ask your question.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning.
Okay. My question is, when we printed it to the console,
Yeah.
it was printing twice. I don't know if you noticed. After
Oh,
after it finished loading to 150, to reload again to 150 again. So it's
okay.
running twice.
So,
So my question is like, why is that so?
okay. So why that will happen is because we are not controlling the rendering, right? We don't have any control over the rendering at the moment. Or I think I saved it twice. So if you save it twice, it should not render twice anyways. Okay, I'll get back to you on why that is rendering like that. Is that okay? Remind me on Discord. Okay? Are you muted? Good, okay. So remind me on Discord. You can also do your research and then we can discuss it on Discord. Thank you. Let's move on to numbers, to grading, right? So we had one last question about grading. Let us use those results. So, okay. And otherwise, your code giving me all these boxes. Okay, let's see what's happening. Okay, okay, okay. All right. So this is what I'm going to do. Okay, so let me write it. Let me write this code myself so that we don't waste time. Yeah, Udo, I'm not sure I can give you a response for your code for now because it's not clear on my IDE. Too many boxes. So probably from how it's pasted or something, but let us just move forward and take care of what we need to take care of. So yeah, so we are supposed to check for scores, or we are supposed to check our code based on the person's score and give the person a grade, right? So we can say export function. We call it calculate grade. Then we pass the score argument, right? Okay, you want me to use your own Ianu? Okay. Okay, let's use the Ianu's code. Let's see. If it doesn't give me the boxes, we'll use it. Okay, this is a little cleaner. So yeah, we are trying to calculate the score, right? So in his code, he's calling the score X, right? So X will stand for the score. And what we are trying to say is if X is greater than or equals to 0, and X is less than or equals to 59. So what he did here, he started from F and went down to A, right? In my own approach, I was about to start from A and come down to F, right? But this is very fine. Yeah, so you can actually, the flow can go whichever way, right? As far as you have the conditions, and the conditions can give you the result that you want. So for this now, he's starting from 0 and he's saying if it is equals to 0 or less than 59, or even equals to 59, you should give the person an F, right? Then he's saying the same thing for AD. He's saying that, okay, from 60 now, which is the figure immediately after this, if it is equals to 60 or greater and equals to 69 or lesser, we should give the person a D. And then that goes on based on the criteria that was given in the question till we have an A, right? Then if the number does not fall within the range that is between 0 and 100, we should return an invalid grade. So if we import this here, right, and give it a number, let's say 40, this person did really bad, and then we save. So excuse me, I have not imported that. Yeah, so if we do this and come here, my bad, this will be bad because we logged. So we want to log the results. All right, so good. So we have F, right? And if we decide that if this person made, let's say the person had the score of 90, that person goes on with an A. So you see that this simple function now can be used in grading your score. Let's say maybe you have like an LMS, of which we do have an LMS in KodeCamp, which will be grading your score. So once I put in your grade, we can use a simple function like this to just give you your grade immediately. Once I input the figure you had, you just get your result immediately. If it's an F, it's straight, you just get the F straight, right? So do you understand? Hello, can you guys follow me? All right. Okay, all right, good. So let's move on. Let's talk about functions. I know we've done some functions already, so it's not like it's new to us. And I believe that we are already understanding the whole concept of functions. Udo, go ahead, unmute yourself, ask a question.
What you were showing is that
Your voice is cracking, so I believe your network is. Hello.
you were putting export
Hello, Udo.
beside. Hello.
Yeah, your network is bad. I can't hear you.
Me?
Can she hear me?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Still not good
Hello,
enough.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, but you can hear me now.
Yes,
Then
that's
go on.
better. You
I'll
can go
ask my
on.
question
Yes.
later.
No, feel free. We can hear you now. Go on.
Okay. My question is, I noticed
When you start asking your questions, we don't hear you anymore. So maybe just rectify what's happening on your end, and then just raise your hand. I'll call you again. Okay, yeah. So let us move to functions, right? So what are functions? Who understands what a function is? Let me share my screen. I'm getting error in my console. No, you cannot share your screen. Just unmute yourself, Ajoki, and explain what's happening on your console. Or take a screenshot and paste it in the text box. Block of code. Okay, yeah. Donatus, that's a good answer. More responses, please. What's a function? Function is a block code that can be reused. Okay. All right. I still want more responses, please. Yeah, I like the ones that have come in, but I still want more. I want to be sure you guys are with me. Functions. What's a function? I'm still waiting. Okay, let's move on since there are no more responses. So functions in JavaScript. Okay, someone else, Henry. Function make code base cleaner because it can be reused when needed. Okay. Function is a set of instructions when called perform a specific task. Okay. All right. I think that's enough. We can move from there. So yeah, functions fundamentally are like building block in JavaScript, right? They are designed particularly to perform specific tasks or calculations. The function in JavaScript is a reusable block of code, like a lot of you have already stated in the text box, right? Yeah, it's a reusable block of code that can be called anywhere in the program. Functions help in organizing code base, making it modular. You remember when we started, we handled models last week. So this is why functions are very essential in React. They help your code stay modularized. So you have a modular structure to work with, right? That helps it become reusable so that you can use one particular code in different ways. I think I gave you an example of using a button in different parts of your code, but the button is a component that you, or let's say it's a function that you built. So you can now tweak that function to the point where you can use it in different points, use different names on it, right? But it still remains at the same function. So that's when we say a particular component is dynamic, right? So it accepts different types of information and then displays based on what you want it to display. Yeah, so it's also easy to maintain, right? Functions are also easy to maintain. So basically, a function is made up of the function, depends on how you want to call your function, right? Because some functions can be declarations and some can be expressions. But let's just see a basic function structure. So function name, right, equals to the parameter then then we have the function body. Okay, so this is like basic structure of a function. All right, so yeah, thank you, Sean, I see you. Yeah, so this is the basic structure of a function, right? So if we can have declarations and then we can have expressions, right? So let's say we want to declare a function, you can just go function greet. Let's use greet, and then we say console.log hello world. So this is a function, right? This is a function declaration. Let me know if you are not following what's happening here. Sorry, where is it not correct? Thank God. What line?
Line 1.
Okay, in function name. Thank you. All right, good. That's fine. Thank you. I like the way you guys are following me. I like the fact that you can spot little typos. It means we are together. Okay, so yeah, so function expressions, right? So this is a simple function expression. You see that we are defining a variable and then now this is the expression. We are now writing our function. So anything that happens in this function will be like added will be the content that this variable will have, right? But now this variable is a function. It's not a regular variable. Do you understand? All right, good. So let's arrow functions. So arrow functions. So this is typically what an arrow function looks like, right? You see that there's an arrow. The arrow separates the argument from the function body. Now, the whole arrow function name comes from the fact that this arrow is here, right? So for arrow functions don't use this function keyword. Are you following? Are you following me? Are we together? Good. So arrow functions don't use the function keyword. This covers for the function keyword already. As you see, once I hover on this, you see that the function is already called here. So the arrow itself covers for the function keyword. The parameters are listed inside parentheses in an arrow function, right? So this is where you list your parameters. Let's say you want to have A and B when you are doing your A plus B function, right? So you want to pass this inside the parentheses. There are scenarios where you don't need to pass this inside parentheses, right? Yeah, someone has a question, but sir, are they all doing the same thing? Yes, they are all doing the same thing. The arrow function is just a shorter syntax for writing like a more concise syntax for writing functions. Matthew, are you following? Is that fine? Exactly, yes. Faith has also said something there. Yeah. As far as your code block is the same, it gives you the same response. Arrow functions were introduced with ES6, right? So it's just like an upgrade, a more concise structure or most concise syntax for writing functions. So I think we can move forward with that now. Or is there any other question that needs clarity with arrow functions? Yeah, I'm waiting. Just in the text box, yes, no. You have post A and B are parameters or arguments. Yeah, so they are parameters but used for an argument, right? Do you understand? You see that they are parameters, but this is an argument. So you have a function that you want to, you have arguments that you want to do, and these are the parameters that you are going to use to fulfill the arguments that you have in your function body. Okay. Are we good? Please, yeah, okay, the actual value is the argument, yeah, okay. Any other person, any other question with regards to arrow functions so that we can move forward? Are we together? Can we move? All right, good. Okay, so let's move to something else. So we'll be looking at class components. Yeah, so we'll be looking at class components. So what's the basic concept of a class component? Who has an idea of what a class component is? Who has an idea of what a class? Just raise your hand. I want you to actually speak. All right, Josephine, just go ahead.
Okay. When I hear classes in JavaScript, I know that they are used to is a template or a blueprint to create objects.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay. Yeah. So actually, yes. Yeah, you can mute. Okay, let's hear from Faith before we go on. Faith, go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, what she said is right. But then I've not used class components to like build project, but I've read about it. And before React Hook was introduced, class component was a component that is created whenever you want to use state, like you want to add some state functionality to your project. So you create a class component. Since functional component did not have hook, nowadays we just use state. So that's where I heard about know about class component.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you very much. Mute. You can drop your hands. Once you finish speaking, just drop your hands. Okay, so yes, you guys are very correct. We have two ways of creating components, right? We have the class components and functional components. We'll talk about functional components in a later session. But for this session, we'll discuss class components. Basically, class components are based on JavaScript classes. So it's a feature that allows you to define objects that have properties and methods. I hope you guys are following me. So what Faith and Josephine just said, they are actually very much spot on, right? So think of those classes as a blueprint, right? So for React.component, there's React.component. So normally in a class component, you're supposed to extend React.component. As you are extending the components, right? So what happens when you extend React.component? You are only trying to utilize the classes, right? Which is the blueprint for creating objects. Okay, where did you lose me? Udo. Okay, let me just go over the explanation again. So think of classes as a blueprint, right, for creating objects. So just like a blueprint for a house, let's say you want to build a house, right? The blueprint will include details about how the room should look, the kind of doors, the windows, the sizes of the windows, right? Just like a class defines what properties, which of course data, and methods, of course actions, the object created from it will have, right? So React already comes with that component. It has an inbuilt component that has these classes already in it with all these actions. So when you create a class component, you are trying to extend that React component that's already inbuilt. You're trying to extend that component so that you can harness the abilities of that component to create your own actions and utilize and probably handle your own, manipulate your own data. Okay, you mean what they are used for? Class components are like, they are just components, right? Just like a normal component is a reusable chunk of code, right? That you want to be able to use in different parts of your code. Or even if you don't want to reuse it, it can just serve a purpose, a one-time purpose as a component, right? For displaying something or for creating an action, right? So let me give you a little analogy of what React extending React components means, right? Imagine you are building a new kind of car. Instead of designing everything from the scratch, right? You start with a basic car blueprint, which is React.component. That already includes things like engine, wheels, and seats, right? So all you are now trying to do is you are trying to customize this already, should I say, this casing. You want to now customize it, give it some kind of effect, how you want the lighting to be, how you want the interior to be, right? So that is what extending React feels like or looks like or is supposed to be. Do you understand? All right. So now, why are we extending React.component, right? By extending React.component, we now have a new class component, right? Which inherits all the useful features from React component. These features include managing states, lifecycle methods, and of course, render method. Are we together? Okay, all right. So yeah, so managing states, just keeping track of the data that changes over time, right? Lifecycle, we want to control how we are rendering stuff to the DOM, right? Run specific code at different times, like when the component is first created, updated, or destroyed. Well, I don't really understand that question, but hold on with it. Let me finish what I'm saying, then we can look at that question, right? Then for render method, define what the UI should look like, right? So let's just see like a practical representation of what it looks like. So let's import React, right? And then we want to import components from React. Okay, so as you can see now, this component now, we are importing it from React because it's an inbuilt React feature, right? So when we import it now, it has all these, it has all the features that we want, like the special effects that we are trying to utilize in our own classes now that we want to create, right? So we now say class, then let's call it my component. Then we extend this component. Are you following? Are you following me? Do you understand what's happening? I explained the whole concept of extending the component, right? So the fact that we are extending this component, we are creating a new class called my class, right? But we are extending it so that we can take out the properties or the behavior from components and attach those behaviors to our new class. Yeah, basically it can be lowercase, it can be uppercase, but yes, ideally you use uppercase for your components. So thank you for that. But it's not like you can't use lowercase. But ideally, like best practice is uppercase. Yeah. So thank you for Nkiru. Nkiru, you have a question. Go ahead, unmute.
Hello, can you
Yes.
hear me, please?
Yes.
This class keyword, is it a data type or what?
The class?
Yes, yes.
No, it's not a data. It's not a data type.
So what is
So
it?
you have to call class because you are defining a class. You are creating a class. Right. So you are saying you are creating a class. It's just like when we were creating functions. You write
Okay.
function before what you want to do, right? Are you with me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are creating a class name, my component. Then we are extending this class name to component to the React component. So we want to take all the behaviors from here and attach it to this class so that we can now enjoy those privileges that come with components, with React component in our class function. Is that clear? More like that, yeah. So after we extend our React our components, right? We have to call a constructor. Yeah, so we have to call a constructor and pass the props and pass super. So let us also log this one. This wait. We'll come back to that. We'll get there. Let's take it step by step. So yeah. So I'm sure this might confuse some people. Yeah. So all that is inbuilt. Yeah, you don't have to worry about it, Moramike. You don't have to worry about that. So the constructor method, and the constructor is a method. Yeah. That's where we set up our components. Basic setup. We use super props to call the class component. That is the new class that we just created. We also initialize the state, right? You see, I've commented the state here. So we are trying to say, okay, we want to create a this.state, which is like the initial state of what we want to do. And what we're trying to do here is a simple counter, right? A counter component. So we have this, and we're saying, okay, the initial state of this component, we want the initial state of count to be 0. Well, I wouldn't say. What I would say is it's best practice is just write your component with the capital letter first. So camel casing, that means the first letter will be small letter, right? So it's ideal that you start your component with capital letter. Hope that's for your question, right? So we call the constructor method to construct and call out the props from our component, right? Because we have extended this component. So this component has the properties that are in this already. So we are using these props now to bring the new behavior that my component has. We are now bringing it here and we are calling the super. Sorry, I don't understand your question, Josephine. Okay, Josephine, on mute, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. So what I want to know is that, on line 4, you said we are going to extend that class, my component. This is a new class that we are creating, and we want to copy all the properties of components. So what I'm asking is that this component here that is on line 4, after the extend, have we created it before? Because I didn't understand line 1.
Okay, you don't understand this one.
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, okay. So we don't need to create this component. This component is, I think I said something about it now. This component is inbuilt, is a React feature, right?
Okay.
Yes, it's a React feature. So we are importing it directly from React.
Okay, I get you now. Okay.
Good. So we are taking it from React direct and utilizing it. So all this now, this component now is already, those features are already in it. The features like the methods, right? Like the managing of states, life cycle methods and all that, render method, those things already exist in this component. So that is why we are extending it. We are now saying, okay, React has this stuff. We want to take this stuff from what React has built and use it to build our own component. Udo, is the React component different from the component folder we created? Yes. Yes, it's totally different. This one is direct. We are importing it directly from React. If we want to import stuff from this folder, right, we are going to be importing it from this folder in our project, not from React. So if you look at this statement, it's clearly stated that we are importing this component from React. Udo, is that clear? Udo, please be quick. All right, okay, good. So once we have our initial state set, we can now come out of here and define our increment method. So let's say we want to increment, let's use an arrow function. We want to increment, and then we'll say arrow function. Inside the arrow function, we'll now say this dot set state. So you see that we have an initial state here of count equals to 0, right? So now we now say we want to set state now. So we want to alter this state by setting a new state, right? And in this set state, we want to say let count, right? In the new state now, let count be this the state dot count plus 1. Is this clear? Okay, all right. So yeah, so for Josephine, so what's happening here? We are setting this state, and then inside here we are now trying to assess the count, initial count state, which is this. So we are saying this the state, the discount, right, which is 0 initially. We want to add 1 to it every time that a button is clicked. Josephine, is that clear? Good. So it's just a normal incrementing, method. So this, we now move to render it. So this is like a very simple class component. So let's say render. So this is the render method. We have to be the ones to define our render method. Okay. So in this render method now, what we are doing is we are rendering a return statement that contains HTML. So remember that JSX is a combination of JavaScript and HTML. So this is where we are returning our HTML code now. So this is what we want to display on the DOM. first things first, we want to display the initial state of, in fact, not just the initial state, we want to display the state of this count at all points, whether it is incremented or it is at its initial state, right? So we say H1 should display that count. So we say this dot state dot count. Now, we want to use an event listener on a button, right? This is the button component. So we want to use an event listener, which is an on-click event, to trigger this increment function, this one, this method. So we want to trigger this increment. So we're saying that when this button is clicked, this should increment. So this dot increment will trigger this method, which is this increment now that we've added here. So if we go to our DOM, we haven't exported this, we'll still need to export it. So always remember that it's a model. What we just created now is a model. It's a component of its own. That's a model. So we need to export it so that we can import it where we want to use it. Are you following? All right, okay. So we come here and we say, so we exported this, so we come to app.js and we want to display it here, right? So yeah, so this is how you display components, right? They don't have like open and close. Depends though. There are components that you want to pass a child component to, and you can give it a children prop, right? But we'll get to that part eventually. But for now, this is how we are going to be displaying our functions. Then I import it. So I've imported it. So you see what you were talking about importing from our component. You see that when I import here, on close bracket, where do I have that? Is it here? I think I've closed that bracket. Moramike. Or is it a new one? You can share. Are you with me? Unmute and speak. Janet.
Yeah, I
Moromike.
guess it's closed now. The other
Okay.
time.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Thank you. So I don't know that the artist in the house, you're going to really need to tone down on your drawing. Okay. Someone's hand is raised. Udo. Udo, go on, speak.
Hello, please, can you hear me clearly now?
Yes, please.
Okay, please, I have a little challenge. Now, you're doing all this in the model.js, but while you
Yes.
were now importing it, you exported it as my component.
Yes, because the name of the component is my component. So this is not what you will be exporting it as. Do you understand?
Okay, all right.
This is what
You
you
know,
export it as.
the
It's
question I was
actually,
asking before, I
yeah,
think why you got those boxes was because, I created in the assignment, I created a component and I now
okay.
created my assignment.js inside the component. I did not
Okay.
export it as individuals the way you exported in the class. I
Okay. So you did
exported it
not export
as
the
I
model
exported that
itself.
whole component exactly
Okay.
and
Okay.
imported it.
Okay. I understand you. I
So I was a
understand.
bit confused when I now saw a different way of, you were now exporting them individually. So,
Okay. But is it clear now?
okay, that aspect is clear, but I need
All
to
right.
understand why you are now exporting my component. Meanwhile, my
Okay.
component is inside module.js.
Okay, yeah. So if you notice from here, you see that module.js is still here, right? Can you see? So I'm exporting, I'm
Yes,
importing
yes.
my component from the components folder, and the file name is model. So you see that the file name does not change. It's still there. But it's not the file name that I'm exporting, it's the function. Or should I say is the component itself. This is the component. It's not the file name is not the component. This is the actual component. It is what you define here on this block that is the component that you export. So now when I export this now, I'm supposed to import this component, not the model.
Okay,
Is
you're
it
in
clear?
the app.js. Yes, that
Yes.
aspect is
So
clear.
good. So it's the model I'm importing, but I'm importing it from a file name, a file called model. Is my component I'm importing rather, but I'm importing it from a file called model, right?
Module, yes,
Yeah, so
in
this
a
is the name of the
folder
file, no
called
doubt. Good,
component.
good, yes. This is the name of the
Okay,
file, no doubt. But what we are importing is the component itself.
okay. So
Okay?
does that mean that if you have several components in that
Of
file,
course, you can
you import
export,
them
but
into
now
you're going to them
but this is the
individually?
thing, yeah, you have to do that individually, and that means you won't have a default here. So once you have a default, that means this whole file is owned by this component. So this is the only component that will be exported from this file. Do you understand? But
Yes, I do.
yes, but if you want to export several components from here now, you won't have default here, and you won't even need to write this code. All you need to do is come here and export it here,
Oh, oh, okay.
right? So
Yes, yes.
you're not exporting the component directly. So if
Okay.
I define
Thank you.
another component of, let's say, my bread, my
Mm,
bread calculation component or my calculator, right?
mm.
I can always export it to like create the component and export it, just like we're doing when we're handling models, right? We had the add model, we also had the subtract model, and we're all exporting the both of them out of this models file.
Yes, but there's another thing I observed. When you were now importing it for the ad, you put the ad in curly braces. But in this one, okay, because this one is just it is just this my model
Mhm.
that has this
So
file. That's
yes,
why you didn't
so
put it
that
in
is
curly braces.
okay. So that is what we call destructuring, right? So what happens with destructuring is you have a lot of things in a particular file. So you want to destructure that file and pick out the ones that you need within them, right? So hold on. Let me see if we can. I think we're supposed to do something with regards to destructuring. Okay, so let me do this, right? Let's comment this out and just look at the structure. So if you have like, let's say a list of cars, right? So let's say you have list of cars, const. Okay. Okay, all right. So yeah, so Lambo, let's use Camry. Camry. Okay, let's just use car one, car two, car three, so that one can be fast. All right, so if you want to destructure this now, right? You want to come here and say const from class, right? It depends. So if we come down and we console log car1, okay. Hold on, we have an issue here. Okay, so yeah, just hold on. Let me figure this out. Consider. Okay. All right. So we should have, okay, undefined. Yeah, I hope you guys are there. I'm with you. All right, good. I don't want too much. Okay. So let's see this. All right, good. So yeah, so this is what the structure looks like. Yeah. So you see that for this car1 and car2, right? We are trying to take out car1 from this and assign it to just car1. So we are bringing it out. We want to bring out this key, right? And then access the value on its own from this car variable. Are you following? Hello, are you following me? Text box.
Yes.
Okay, text box, please use the text box. Okay, so now if we console log this now, it's going to give us the result of this, right? If we do the same for this, it's going to give us the same thing. So what happens here? Let's use it now in our component structure, right? So what happens like this now is, let's assume that this variable is this model file, right? Now you have 2 or 3 functions that you are exporting from here, right? So you want to access those functions individually. So when you are importing it now, then you are not going to import it as import component from this. You are going to be, since the component is not the only file there, you are going to destructure the module folder and bring out the component. Are you following? Okay, I need like 3 more yeses. If that's good, if that's correct, then we can move on. Okay, I think I have like 2 people raising their hands up. So, Udo, you're the one I just attended to, right? So let me hear from Josephine. Okay.
Okay. So, sir, are you saying now that the reason why you use that, the structure, the curly braces, was because components, more modules to export? And
Yes,
the
I
reason,
had a lot.
okay, first of all, the reason why you have more than one module to export from that module.jss. But if you have just only one, maybe only one thing, you don't need that destructured. You just need to put only the name of what you are
Yeah, you
exporting.
just default. Yeah, just export default.
Okay, I understand.
So it's like saying this is the only thing that is in this component and I want to export it. So let it be the default component coming out of this particular file. Yeah. So yeah, this will really help you guys. Go ahead and read on named and default exports. Yeah, that will be very helpful. Faith, thank you for that. So I believe that we all understand what's going on here. So let's just visualize what the component can do in real time. So we have the components here. We are not using the DOM. We are not using the we're not using our console this time. We're using the actual DOM, right? So you see that we have a button that we named increment. This button that has a method for adding 1 count to each time this button is clicked, right? So if we click on this button now, it should increase to 1. If we click on it, it should increase to 2, right? Are you guys following? Are you following? Do you understand what's going on? Good.
I did
So
not
if I come here,
that's first the content of the other one is not clear to me.
please, text box and Kiro, please lift your hand. Let me call you to unmute before you unmute. Okay. So lift your hand. I'll call you up. Let's be very orderly. All right. So just raise your hand. For now, how many people understand? We have 4 people that understand, right? Inkirika, you can unmute yourself now and ask your question. Obioma, what do you not understand? Hello, Nkiru Lois. Please unmute and speak.
What I'm saying, not here. I actually understand this, my component, the increments.
Okay.
This, go up, please. I want to check something. I want this constructor probes, and I'm not even getting what is happening there. I understand the component extent, but this constructor probes, I don't understand what is going on.
You understand which part?
This constructor probes super. I don't understand what is going on.
Okay, so when you use the constructor, you have to call the super props, right? So this super props is like a standard, okay? When using class components. Even the constructor is also a standard because this is what you are using to construct your component. So everything happening inside here is like you are manipulating inside it. Everything you're going to be doing around this component. This is where you're manipulating it from. Or this is where you're setting or defining the initial behavior of the component.
Okay. So
are we together? So
yes,
this constructor now, so this constructor it's inbuilt in React, right? And what you're using it to do, you're using it to construct this very class that you just built.
Okay.
So you remember we are extending this class from component, and we want to use all the properties of this class, right? So when we extend and we now have our class, we want to construct that class and then take out the props, the properties. These props is properties. We are not taking out properties from, like the properties that have been transcended from this component to our component. We want to use all those properties now in our code, which includes this, the state, which is your state management. This is where you're managing your state. And then this super is a standard when you are trying to, when you are constructing your props, you have to call the super props, right? Now, inside here, you can do a lot of things. You can define a lot of initial states here, right? That you can manipulate within your code. Let's assume that we want to do something like, we want to decrease, right? We want to decrease that count. So let's say this increment, and we say decrease count, right? And then we define another button here that is going to handle the action that we just defined, right? And then for decrease, we say, let's remove one. Every time we click on decrease, one should remove from this count, right? If we come here, we now have two buttons. Let's and we need to style. Okay, let's just work with the buttons that we'll get to styling stuff later. So yeah, decrease. Okay, so we have decrease and we have increment. So if we increment, we can also decrease. Are you following?
Yes.
So we are manipulating this initial state that we have set up here in our constructor. There are other cases that you want to do other things within this constructor, which we will get to look at, even though we are not going to be looking at too much of we're not going to be looking at too much of class components, because we'll be using modern JavaScript. And modern JavaScript, we use functional components in modern JavaScript, right? So I don't know if you are good. Lois, are you good?
Yes, I think I understand now.
All right, you can mute yourself, please. Any other person having challenges? Before React Hook, class components was popular for using states, as it was the only way to create a method in the component. Okay, yeah, so I think I like the fact that Faith, you have done a lot of research on your own. And I think that's why you are flowing very well in this class. Because I know that last class you were among the people that had a lot of questions, right? But this class, you seem to be the resource person. So for everybody, I think it would be advisable that you follow in our footsteps and possibly try to do your own research. Try to do your own, don't rely wholesomely on what we do in class. Because if you don't do your own research, there are a lot of concepts that you get to know on your own. Here we are going to do mostly basics and rudimentary stuff, right? But with research and further practice, you can understand these things better, right? So kudos, Faith. Thank you for being a resource person in this class. All right, let's move on.
Please, I want to ask for something. Just a favor. Can you just help me copy that code and drop in the message section?
This is very code, right? This is very code.
Yes, from the class components down.
Okay. So you were not following the class. You did not take anything down. You did not write the code yourself. So that's another thing I'll advise you guys. When the best way to know what we are doing here is by doing. So that's why I noticed that some people are discovering where there is a missing bracket and where there is that. That's because they are following and they are probably writing it on their own end too. So it's always advisable to type it yourself, because that way it sticks. Yes, Queen, basically, it's not, people still legacy, they are legacy developers, like people who write legacy code, like people who love to use legacy code, like olden days code, right? Because this is like old code, old ways of doing things. Because here now, if you want to manage your life cycle, which is what we want to talk about next, if you want to manage your life cycle, you have to define your life cycle yourself, right? I can say it's legends. Yeah, so you want to define your life cycle yourself. Yeah, did mount, should update, did update, should destroy, should unmount, all those stuff, right? So that's like olden day stuff. Now, presently, we have books that can handle these things easily with very simple syntax, right? That can handle life cycle and handle rendering without having to instruct it yourself. Okay, so let's just move to life cycle. Am I too fast? Do I need to slow down? Response. I'm not too fast, right? Okay, so I can keep going. All right, Alabi, nice. Okay, all right. So let's rush up. So let's use this same component, right, to explain what life cycle does, right? So basically, life cycle methods. All right. So basically, life cycle method in React classes are special methods that run automatically at specific stages of a component's lifestyle, right? That's why they are called life cycle. It's just like life cycle. You are born, you live your life, then you die, right? Don't worry, none of us here is going to die. We'll live and go to heaven alive. Okay. All right. So we have different stages in the life cycle, which is the mounting. So mounting is when the component is being created and inserted into the DOM, right? Then updating when the component is being re-rendered due to maybe changes in state or data or props, right? Then unmounting is when the component is being removed from the DOM. So why are lifecycle methods important? Lifecycle methods allow you to control and execute code at these specific stages, given, right? It will give you a lot of opportunity to do some kind of tasks in the process, right? Because now let's assume that we have a component and we want to fetch data, right, from an API. So yes, you need life cycle, because now you want to use that life cycle to tell when to fetch that data, right? So you want to tell your code, okay, fetch this data as soon as my component mounts, right? Or fetch this data when it is updating. Are you following? So now there are different. So there's a scenario where you can use the same function to fetch data when it's mounting, and then also fetch again when it is updating, right? All that is the benefits of using life cycle methods, right? Maybe updating UI changes, yeah, clean up resources as well, right? So I think I already gave you a real life analogy of birth and death, right? So birth is when the component is mounted, right? And then growth and changes in your life when you are growing up and all that, that's updates. So there are little updates on your body, you start growing beards, right? And all that, that's updating. So that's like the stage where the component is being updated, right? And then there's an end of life stage, which is the unmounting stage of the component. Are we together? Yeah, so I need you guys to speak. All right, okay, good. So, okay. So let's use this same component, right? So we've already constructed our props, super props and all that, right? And then we have our states. So let's say we want to So let's say we want to create a method, right? Inside. We want to create a method inside the class, right? So this very increment count, we want to create it inside here. We want to use the constructor to handle it. So you might want to ask, why are we doing the binding, right? Are you with me? Do you understand what's going on? Please respond quickly. We have less than 20 minutes. All right. Okay, Udo says no. Okay, fine. So in this scenario, right, when you define a method inside the class, such as this increment count, right, it doesn't automatically bind to the class instance. Do you understand? It doesn't bind this. If I don't add this bind now, it will not bind to this of this class instance, right? Now, if that happens, if the method is called, it will give you, it might not refer to the class instance, but it will give you an undefined value. You understand? Because it's not binding. It's not binding to this very class instance. So what we do is we use the bind method to bind this increment count to this class. Are we together? Yes, exactly. Good. I like that. So Udo, you understand what I'm trying to say now. So you refer directly to this component instead of global. But there are also points where you can actually do this and refer it globally, and probably you might have defined this increment count globally, right? So yeah, for this very scenario, so that you can get exactly what you want from this my component, you are now binding this to my component. So can we move? Are we good? Are we good? All right, okay, all right. So now we want to define the mounting stage. So we want to mount our component on the dome, right? So we say component did mount, right? So when the component mounts, we want to console the log components mounted. Are we together? Then what I want to do now is I want to set a timer for our increments, for this increment to work. So I don't want to use a button. Yeah, this is like an inbuilt stuff, component mount, right? So if I want to say, if I want to set a timer, let's say this dot timer, right? And then I say set timer. I don't want to use an arrow function. Set timer, and then I say this dot increment value every 1000 milliseconds. Are you following? Are we together? Text box. Quickly. Okay, all right. So we are now saying that when this component mounts, once it mounts, we want to increment this value, right? Okay, well, I'll take your question, Josephine. Once this component mounts, we want to increment this value. So we want to say add 1 to this count every 100 milliseconds, right? So that's like every second add 1. You can say 200 if you want it to take a little longer before it increments, right? Are we together? Josephine, let me take your question so I don't go too far before I get lost.
Okay, thank you. Now, if you go to line 10, you said we can write the method inside the component. That's my component. But I noticed that you did not define it like the way you did when it was outside. Like,
that's why
so I
I'm
wanted
binding.
to know. That's what I wanted to understand. Is it because okay, when you bind, you don't need to when you just say increment count, it knows what to do on its own.
Yes. So that's why I'm binding it to this count, to the state up there, right? And then you are also doing you are using life cycle here to define. This might not increment. It's not going to increment on its own if you don't actually give it this instruction. Do you understand? So there's an instruction here that it is following. Now, assuming we're using hooks now, we'll use effect, right? So use effect can also use this set timer method, right? So this set timer method takes 2 arguments, right? You are telling it increment at so and so pace.
Okay, so without this component did mount, it will not do anything.
It will not do anything, of course.
Okay, I understand.
So this is where we are now setting the timer. This is where we are setting a timer so that we can utilize it to display on our. Yes, you won't need to click any button. What we are using here now is the mounting. So we are using the life cycle to decide on what to do. Are you following? Udo, just type yes if you are following, please. Okay, good. So because we are trying to, we are using this to define this, the increment count. Is it the property name? Okay, so this is part of React though. You see, it's from my component. Are you seeing that? So it is part of the things that are coming from this component that we now extended into this component. Are you following? Good. All right. So now we also have updates, right? So for updates now, let's say should component update. So we pass 2 arguments, next props and next states. So say console.log. All right, so we can actually return true or just give it our own statement again. So we want to say next. For next state dot count, right? So if next state dot count is not equals to this dot state dot count, right? It should update. Are you following? What are people surprised about? Yeah. So Alabi is right. So you research. That's why it's just like school. It's just like schoolwork. When you go to school, after teaching a class, you still do your research. You still want to know further. Like, there are some keywords you see and you might not understand in the class. So you want to know what that keyword is, what that keyword means, or why that thing is happening, right? You just do your research and then you get responses. But always ask questions when your research does not help you out, right? Okay, so for this, we are saying if the next state dot count, that is, if the next count is not equals to the initial count, we want to update the DOM and put the new counts, right? So that's what I do with should components update. So we can also have component did update, right? Yeah, so component did update. So for this now, we are going to console log component updated. And then we want to also console log, or we want to add an if state. Let's add an if statement. So if previous states dot count is not equals to this dot state dot count, right? We want to console log count updated to this dot state dot count. Okay. Are we together? Do you still understand what's happening, or anybody lost? Is anybody lost? Are we together? Yeah, the third function. Okay, the third function is confusing. Okay, all right. Okay.
Please.
Hold on. I hear you. Okay, so this last one, I need an explanation on the terminologies used. Okay, hold on. All right. So we are looking at component did updates, right? So what we are doing with the previous and previous states in that scenario, right? This method is called after the component has updated. That is, we are talking about re-rendering, right? It receives the previous props and then states, and then the previous state as arguments. Are you following? These two, the previous props and the previous state as arguments, right? Are we together? Okay. Then what we are doing next is we are consoling that, okay, once this component did amount runs, we want to console component updated, right? And then we're now saying if this previous states, all we are doing in this if statement is checking if the count has changed. Do you understand? So we have previous state, this previous state now, and we are just checking if this previous state is not what was initially there. That means this previous state has changed. We want to now console log count updated, and then we want to console log the new count. Cool. Are we good? Please be fast. Let me get response. Okay. All right, good. So let's move to components will amount, right? So this one I want to clear timer. Either we can use clear timer or clear interval. Okay. Are you following? So you see that they are accepting the same arguments, both clear interval and clear timer. All right, so for this now, I want to console log that, okay, the component unmounted, and then we clear the timer, right? Please comment quickly so that we can move on. Are we together? Okay, so now for us to update that state, right, we must set the state. So we are now going to call that increment count that we have here. This increment count, and then we are going to set state. But this is what we are going to be doing here now. We say previous states right, arrow function. Then we now say count would be equals to previous states dot count plus 1. Are we together? Is anybody confused? I think I have a missing. All right. Okay, are we together? Can we move on to see what this looks like in our DOM? The render method is still the same, but this time we are going to only displaying the counts, right? So we need the buttons. So what we are doing here, I want to say count. Yeah. Are we together? I need like some response, please. Response, please. Okay, all right, good. So let's go to our good. So if you look at what's going on here now, you see that component mounted, component unmounted, component mounted, should component update, right? Then after should component update, the now updated to 1, right? And it's saying should component update. So after should component update, the component now updates. Then it now displays in the console the new number, right? And also displays on the DOM the new number. So now we gave it 2 minutes. Is it 2? I think it's 2 minutes we gave that thing. So it's gonna take a long time to increment, right? Let's reduce the time. Let's reduce it to 100. Good. So we have our first count. I really want to know who the artist in this class is, though. I'm going to find out soon enough. I will find out. Okay, so let's move on. So it's taking a little bit too long. We shouldn't be. So hold on, let me figure out why it's taking so long. It don't take that long. Oh, because that's updated, but that's not unmounted. Okay, so let me see. Let's see what we can debug here, and then we move on. Count is correct, yeah. So timeout is that we can make count here. Okay. Let's count. And let's see. I want you guys to see the complete structure. So apparently, after updating, it doesn't run again. Are we together? So we are not experiencing the unmounting play interval, yeah. So, but it should still, yeah, that's right, clear interval, that's right. But it should still console.log this before clearing interval, don't you think? Interval. Let's see. Let's jump into number 2. It's not still working. It's not clear interval. Refresh browser. Okay, all right. So yes, thank you. That person that talked about refreshing browser. Okay, I think we are good. So what happens is when we refresh the browser, it unmounts, right? So apparently the component is supposed to actually unmount, like be removed from the DOM completely for unmount to work, which it is, we can see here that it's actually working, right? So after updating, it stops there until you remove it from the DOM. Once you remove it, it unmounts. Are we together? Not seeing your text. Okay, all right, okay. So I think this is where we're going to end our class for today. I'm going to stop recording.